Get started. We are recording this, so we will send it out, and if people want to share it with other people afterwards, then you can. But thanks first of all for everybody for turning up. It's amazing to see so many people here. Um, a lot of you will know a bit of me, a bit of my background, and have some idea who I am, but not necessarily everybody. So I just wanted to kind of kick off with a bit of my background. So I was a developer and a tester and a business analyst back over in London, and a junior project manager. And then I moved over to Ireland in 2009, and I sort of was with Accenture for 7 or 8 years over here, and looking at financial services projects. And in 2016, I was running a big program called MiFID II for the bank. I was the head of technology delivery, so all the IT changes that were needed for that program. But I was also the head of analysis and design competency, and I was the client data protection lead on the account. So I had these kind of plus ones things going on. We also had 3 young kids, and the youngest in particular was only about 8 months old, and Sam was going through potty training. And I won't ruin the story because I haven't got time now to tell it here, and many of you will have heard it already or seen it in the book. But the long and the short of it was that I was trying to manage my work with effort rather than impact, and it landed me in hospital. And I was quite seriously sick, and was in hospital for 9 days, and I was off work for about 2 or 3 months after that. And when I went back after that particular experience, I was I renegotiated my role, and I became the head of project management competency for Bank of Ireland through Accenture. And so my job was to work with all these amazing other project managers who were doing really difficult roles, and find the hardest things that they were working on and help them figure out those problems. So I learned a lot. I did my PMP, my Scaled Agile framework. I learned all about design thinking and behavioral economics, and all these different things, facilitation techniques that are really, really powerful if you're managing any kind of team or project. And we started to do these training sessions. And then in 2018, I got a phone call from someone from CPL on behalf of Anne Herity. Would I like to apply to be Chief Information Officer at CPL? And I said, yeah, go for it. Why not? So I went and read 3 books on how to be a Chief Information Officer. And turns out that that's a really useful thing to do if you're preparing for an interview, because I nailed it and I got the job. And then I turned up there and we had a great team of people, but they were overwhelmed, lots and lots of work coming at them. Brilliant people, but too much work and not really having a great way of managing that stuff. So it was brilliant because we were able to then take all of the things that I'd been learning and teaching over the last 3 years and apply them. And within about a year, same people, same stakeholders, same work, we actually went from being massively overwhelmed to really having a good system in place and managing our team and delivering huge value from the business. And if anybody knows me from my CPL days, they'll know about the work that we won off the back of the IT changes that we were doing. Big clients doing cool things in various parts of Ireland. And we got noticed. So we were on the list. I was on the list for the top 100 CIOs in Ireland. And we won an award. You can see it there behind me there. One of the awards there is the Tiara Award. We actually did get a tiara for technology transformation. And then in 2022, I'd gone down to a 4-day week, and I'll explain how I did that later on. And I decided to finish up with CPL and write the book. So I spent about 3 months writing the book and started this business at the beginning of 2023. And within 7 or 8 months, so in November 2023, we had established the business, started to build out some really good clients, and I won the award from the PMI. So I'm very close with the PMI. I think it's a fantastic organization, and won the award for Project Professional of the Year. And now we've started building a big client list of big clients, mostly large clients here in Ireland, but in other countries as well. And we're starting to build and starting to look at things like franchising and doing train the trainer models, so that the that the training can be shared with a wider group of people. So what are we talking about? What is this thing, James? What is impactful project management? Well, a lot of people feel like this, right, with their work. They've got this work coming at them from all directions. There's so much there and staying really, really busy. And actually, some very simple things that we can do that will make us manage our projects and our work a lot more easily. Just a few simple concepts can make a big difference. And this is what we're trying to get to. We're taking work, we're organizing it, we're planning it, we're estimating it, we're doing good things with it, and then we're delivering really effectively on the highest value, lowest effort things. As we go through the call, one of the things, obviously the reason for this call, and you're all interested in potentially doing something, either it's the training or the book or the online community. If you'd like to have a chat with me, this is the QR code. So you can book in like a half-hour slot, and we'll just have a chat about what's going on in your business or your team, and how maybe I can help with that. So as you see this, if anybody would like to book a slot in the next couple of weeks, please do. Just take a photo with your phone, or there's the link there, which hopefully Lindsay is going to put into the chat. There we go. You can just go into there and have a chat with me. So let's talk about some of the common problems that I see when I'm doing the training course. We ask people to share what the challenges are, and this is what I see over and over again. There's that overwhelmed team, but some managers have these disengaged team members. There's this kind of sort of roll of the eyes about sort of millennials and those kind of things. And actually, there's some really important techniques that you can use to really re-engage people who are feeling a bit like that. Pressure from stakeholders asking for things that they need urgently, very often urgently. A lot of people are dealing with documentation that they consider to be unnecessary, or they don't necessarily know why they're writing it. Has anyone been here? Change request purgatory. I spent about 2 years of my life there. Maybe Josh, you might have a few memories of that one as well, where you've signed off on something, and then all of a sudden somebody changes their mind or learns something new, and you have to go back and do a change request and change the thing. Well, that's an indication that there's maybe some different ways of thinking about your project required. Working on the wrong things. A lot of people are working on a lot of low value, high effort things. Misaligned expectations, how you listen to people, managing issues, that urgent stuff, rather than managing risks well. Different people on different pages, different understandings of what's going on. Unrealistic expectations of projects from the start, and inflated estimates and bad ways of doing estimating that really make damage projects. So these are a lot of the things that I see, not just in your company. I haven't seen your company necessarily, but I see them everywhere, all over the place, and it's brutal, and it really does make people stressed out. So what we've done is start thinking, how do we simplify this down, and how do we do things that are going to actually be valuable to people? So let's talk about that overwhelmed team. Throughout the core of the book, of the training, of the online community, what I talk about is prioritization, right? The only way, there is an infinite amount of work. The only way to manage the work is to prioritize. And I don't mean lots and lots of things that are equal. If anyone's doing Moscow prioritization, must, should, could, would prioritization, and just ends up with a big bucket of must, then there's a small change that you can make to that makes a big difference. And that's to not allow anything to be equal. So everything has to be above something else or below something else. And once you do that, a lot of the behavior improves. How do you do that? Well, I like to talk about estimating effort and estimating value. And we want to be working not down here in the high effort, low value spaces. We want to be working up here in the high value, low effort spaces. It's just a better place to play, right? You get more resources if you're working on high value projects, and things are just easier. So I'm going to turn to one of the greatest project management gurus, I believe, of the 20th century, who explained this beautifully. Any Peter Drucker fans in the house? No. Well, I'm going to go with Baloo the bear. So my brother, when I was lying in that hospital bed, he's kind of cool. He makes harps for a living. He plays the guitar. And he sent me a video of him playing the Bare Necessities to his young son. It's a cute video. Maybe if we do the training course, I might show it to you. And in that line, there's a line. He says, when you pick a pawpaw or a prickly pear, if you pick a paw, well, next time, beware. Don't pick the prickly pear with a paw. When you pick a pear, try to use the claw. But you don't need to use the claw when you pick a pear of the big pawpaw. Okay, it's a bit of a mouthful, and I'm used to saying it, but let's break it down, right? So a pawpaw is a papaya, right? It's a big, juicy, yummy thing with loads of value in it. And a prickly pear is much smaller, much harder to get done, and it's got a little tiny bit of value in it, but not much, right? If you prick a raw paw, so if you're doing a lot of prickly pear picking, then next time think about how you can not be picking prickly pears. Don't pick a prickly pear with a paw. When you pick a pear, try to use a claw. And what I mean by a claw is something like escalation, delegation, chat GPT, outsourcing, outsourcing tiny, tiny pieces of work, or getting an expert in to help you. These kind of things, again, which we talk about on the course, are really powerful. But you don't need to use a claw when you pick a pear of the big pawpaw. If you're working on the highest value, easiest thing in your organization, you're going to have all the resources you'll need because the value is there. The senior team are going to be bought into what you need, and they're going to give it to you, especially if you can explain to them why it's important for them to help you. So learn from Balu. The question for you guys, what prickly pears are you currently picking? If you have to pick those prickly pears, what claws could you use? And are there any pawpaws that you should be working on instead? So let's talk about that prioritization again, right? So how do we actually decide what are the highest value, lowest effort thing? And there's a lot of debate in the industry, particularly about business value, about how to decide this. And I'm going to give you a couple of techniques that work really well for this. So if you go and speak to the guys in the PMR, particularly if you're doing your PMP exam, they'll talk about estimating. And estimating using things like top-down estimate, bottom-up estimate, like ask an expert, that kind of stuff. And the problem with that is none of it actually works. None of it actually tells you how to come to a number that is going to be the number of hours that the thing is going to take. And people often mistake effort for duration, and they make a huge mistake there, because they're not the same thing, and understanding and thinking about them differently is really important. So on the course, and actually these are brand new, we've got our own planning poker cards now. So we're going to teach people how to use planning poker. It's a really effective way of estimating things. And if you get your estimates better, then your project is much more likely to be successful and justified. So we'll teach you how to do planning poker. I won't have time to do that now, but there's some cool cards. And the other thing we'll teach you how to do, when I joined CPL, we had all these people asking for things. And I said, well, okay, well, I'm going to do a training course called How to Articulate the Business Value of an IT Change, a really catchy name. And we set up this training course and we started to work through and ask people, okay, well, why do you want this thing? Right? Perfectly sensible, reasonable question, and work through coaching them to actually put a number of euros, in our case, or dollars or pounds of value on the thing that they're asking for. Okay. And again, we'll teach you how to do that on the training course. And once you have those two things, prioritization becomes not only easy, but something that you can make very transparent. A lot of people are prioritizing based on maybe one person's view of the world. And that, it doesn't necessarily take everything else into consideration. So just that one thing is the kind of backbone to what I would call impactful project management. It works not just for project managers, though. It works in all kinds of different types of work. So then let's talk about that pressure from stakeholders. What we did in CPL is we made our decisions about what we were going to work on really transparent. We literally invited anybody who wanted to come to our prioritization meetings. So it was open. If you wanted something, that's great. Put a business value on and come and have an open discussion with everybody about what's going to happen. And we prioritize things. And then when we ran out of capacity in the team for the 2 weeks, and this is straight out of Scrum, I'm not inventing anything new here. We just said that's the end of what we're doing in this 2 weeks. And if you want to come back in 2 weeks' time, no problem at all. And what happened when we made that transparent is this amazing negotiation where someone would come in with something that they wanted, and then they'd realize it was hard. And so they'd make it a little bit easier. They'd take something out that was the thing that was causing us a problem. And all of a sudden, they'd still get maybe 80% of the value that they were looking for, but we could do it in a lot shorter time. And so we ended up working on these high value, low effort things. And about 50% of the work that we were being asked to do, when we asked people why they needed us to do it, about 50% of the work disappeared. It disappeared because it couldn't be justified in the context of all the other things that were going on. And it's an amazing technique because you're not saying no, you're saying, where does it fit on the priority list? Yes, but is it more important than any of these? And so you become, instead of being this gatekeeper bad guy, you become a positive person. You can try and look for these valuable things for the organization. Let's talk about disengaged team members. If you're suffering from this, and we have these two characters. So Thijs Kromova is the artist who came up with all these, with the drawings for these amazing cartoons. And we have John, who's the stressed out project manager, a bit like me back in 2016. And Jill is the impactful project manager. And so how do you motivate your team? Well, I like Dan Pink's model in his book Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, because he talks about the drive model: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. How can I give each of my team members more of those things, make it clear why they're doing what they're doing, help them to be a bit better every day, and give them some control over what they're doing. But equally, also managing importance versus urgency. So urgency is a bad thing. How do we take urgency out of the equation, right? And I'll take Stephen Covey's Eisenhower matrix apart a little bit on the training and show you, using this, how I went from being a massively overwhelmed, like very busy chief information officer, to having a team of people who were doing most of that work. And I went down to a 4-day week, and then ultimately I left and was able to do like what I do now, without causing the team a huge problem, because they were just able all to step up and do a bit more of what I'd been doing. Change request purgatory, a brutal place to go. If anybody is there at the moment, quickly give me a call and I'll tell you how to get out of it. But what I talk about here is agile without the transformation. I don't know if anybody's been involved in an agile transformation, but it tends to be this enormous thing, and everybody gets scared of it and everybody gets worried about it. And actually, it doesn't have to be a transformation. It can be just as simple as that. Guys, we're going to write down a list of all the things we're going to do this week. Is that okay? Let's do that. And just taking the bits that you need and building them in. And over time, maybe you do a transformation and the organization looks different, or maybe it doesn't, right? Maybe you still have stage gates and you still have reporting and those things in place, but now you're managing your work better, right? So you don't have to, I believe, do all of the scaled agile framework all at once and massively change the organization. I think you change this stuff over time. And this is exactly what we did at CPL. Organizations working on the wrong thing. That idea of value estimation allows you to have a better way of saying no to stakeholders or challenging what they're doing. Misaligned expectations. So how about the meetings that we're running and how effective they are? Well, things like the parking lot, the lean coffee, and the save techniques, will allow us to, will allow us to have great conversations, engaging conversations that avoid, people will have heard me talk about the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion. I've got a little tiny hippo there that I carry around with me. And these kind of things that you can stop having these problems. And they're really simple techniques that we'll talk about on the course. So the SAVE technique is silent writing, affinity clustering, vote, and then execute. Now you've got a prioritized list. Let's go and do it. Unnecessary documentation is probably a sign that you're doing something wrong with what we call information refrigerators. And actually, if you think about how you're sharing your information, something like an information radiator, which can be as simple as a status report or like one of those big screens, a Kanban board on the wall, those kinds of things that are sharing the right information and helping your organization to get comfortable with what's going on. Too much issue management, working on the latest fire, busy, versus risk-based contingency. I haven't got time to fully explain it today, but I absolutely promise you this is a game changer. And everybody does contingency wrong. They do it in a way where they hide it in the estimates, or they add 10% or 20% to the overall cost of the project. Almost everybody. Whereas actually, if you take risks into consideration with how much contingency is on your project, then it allows you to have these amazing conversations with your stakeholders, with your clients, with your bosses about how risky a project is, and possibly even to the point where you get the project canned because it's too risky. And instead of having this kind of stuff on a risk log that nobody really engages with, you can make it tangible and clear to people. It's an absolute game changer. And a lot of people, when they come out of the morning of the second day of the course, are kind of blown away by how useful that is as a tool. unrealistic expectations. A lot of people do this thing where they put the project plan, they, oh, quick, there's the plan. And all of a sudden, everybody's got an expectation of the go live date, and it's in their mind and it's difficult to change. So what do you do with that? The plan for a plan, right? So I'm going to spend the next week doing workshops, and then I'm going to meet some people, and then I'm going to do some estimating, I'm going to do this. And in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to tell you what the plan is. So instead of creating a plan based on pretty much nothing, you're now creating a plan based on proper conversations and a better understanding of the project. Inflated estimates. This idea of like somebody estimates something, and then because stuff might go wrong, their boss is going to add a bit and they're going to add a bit and everybody adds a little bit, and you end up with these big estimates that make the team look as if they're actually rubbish, right? Because it looks like they're going to be, they're not going to be effective at their jobs. Whereas if you can take out the risk and the things that might go wrong, then you can make a big difference to your discussions. So with this, estimating well using planning poker and using risk-based contingency makes a massive difference to what you have to say about your estimates. Okay, so that's enough. That's a lot that I've dumped on you, right? What we do with the course, right, is the flagship is a 2-day course. There's lots of different flavors of it, and we can tailor it for your organization. But what we do is the very first day is or the first morning, we ask everybody, what do you want to get out of it? And then over time, we make sure that we cover all of those things that we tie back. And by the end of the second day, I actually asked people to come back to me and tell me what the answer is to their question. And we did it last week, and it just works really, really well. So then people are proving that they've solved their biggest challenge or their biggest question in terms of project management. And we also do either a sort of general case study in your industry, or we can do your specific project and actually build it out over your project. What are the risks for your project? Who are the stakeholders? What are the tasks that you need to do? And build out these kind of starting point plans. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it because we haven't got enough, but we are up for an award next week with the L&D Awards, and that's for the work we've done with Kenmare Resources. So you might have seen me on LinkedIn flying back and forth to Mozambique. We've been working with a team out there who started off as the IT team, but actually the finance team and the engineering team and the maintenance team, they've all come on this course and have had huge value from it. So I often get asked this question, James, who's the course for? Well, actually, the answer is pretty much everybody. We've had all kinds of people on the course. And what we do at the end of it is we ask people to give us a little bit of feedback on this in this book. And you'll see kind of the quotes there. But obviously I can share those with people, but there's some of the ideas that we get great feedback on the course. So you're going to go away and you're going to think about, okay, hang on a second. Should we have a conversation about this? Why should my organization invest in something like this? Or why should I buy the book? Let's be honest, it's 25 quid for the book. If you do this stuff, right, and you've already got an experienced, highly motivated team, you're going to be an impactful project manager. You will trust them. You will empower them. You'll help them make good decisions. And I think in that context, using these techniques, you can save about 10% of the cost of your project. If you've got a new team who are coming on board, learning, maybe some junior members, you're going to set the vision for the project. You'll set up some effective processes. You'll coach and delegate your team members, and you'll make sure they're working on high value, low effort tasks in a positive environment. And in that context, I think you'll save, and this is what we did at CPL, about 50% of the cost of your projects. 100%? Really? 100% of the cost of your project you could save? Absolutely. The PMI, this is a PMI stat. Somewhere between 20% and 70% of projects fail. 20% fail catastrophically, maybe 70% don't deliver what they were expecting to deliver. If you can identify those 20% of your projects and make it clear what the risks are, using something like good estimation and risk-based contingency to show your organization why that project shouldn't go ahead, you'll stop doing those projects. And maybe some of those projects will get canned and you can work on the high value, low effort, and you won't be working on those prickly pears. So hopefully Lindsay's about to put a brochure into the chat. If you want to send that on to your HR manager or team and ask about joining the course, We've got some open courses. So the IMI, I'm running it through the IMI on the 25th and 26th of September. We're doing it for charity in Galway on the 17th and 18th of October, and then I'm running the thing myself again back in Castleknock here. But most of the training that I do is for a whole company, so a team of between 8 and 15 people inside a company, and that is where obviously the costs come right down to a lot less per person. So there we go, 28 minutes past. We said we'd do half an hour. There's the QR code. If anybody wants to book in some meetings, I can see my diary is filling up quite quickly already. So if anybody wants to book in a meeting, please do use that link to do that. Yeah, and reach out to me afterwards and let me know. Because you all joined, we're setting up a way of doing free copies of the book. So if anybody wants a Kindle type version of the book as a review copy, send us an email to admin@impactfulpm.com, and Lindsay will get in touch as soon as you've got that link and send it out to you. We will ask you to please leave a review on Amazon or on LinkedIn or somewhere if you like it. And of course, there's physical copies. So we've got distribution around the country, but they might not be in the shelves in the bookshops yet. So if you want to go in, you can order it in pretty much all the bookshops in the country, and actually in the UK as well. So
James, apologies, I can't upload the brochure at the moment. It won't let me. Do you have a copy of it yourself?
Okay, I'll figure that out. We'll get that out to people. It's available on the website as well. But that's no problem. If you just send an email. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to stay on, but we'll finish the sort of formal part of the webinar there. And we'll say thank you ever so much for everyone. It wasn't a very interactive. Most of the training is much more interactive than that. But I suppose that's the nature of having 60, 70 people on a webinar. But if anybody does have any question and want to stick around and have a chat afterwards, please do. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James. Well done.
That was a nice James, but thanks a million.